Oh my gosh, this is insane. Oh shit, I thought I lost you forever.
I'm here at Max Action Arena, and I've got something very special. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to play Far Cry in VR? Well, that's what we have today.
Let's go.
So I traveled all the way to beautiful Reno, Nevada to a zero latency location to try out the new Far Cry VR experience. One of my favorite games that I've always come back to for years now has been Far Cry 3, so when I heard of a Far Cry 3 based VR experience, I knew I had to give it a go. Now there's something you should know right away, and hold with me for a second, this isn't a game that you can play at your house. That is, unless you have a 400 foot by 500 foot play space. And what Far Cry VR lacks in convenience of being at your house, it makes up in other areas. This game is quite literally designed to be able to walk within for hundreds of feet. It's a true free roam VR experience, and thanks to Ubisoft and Zero Latency and Val, today we get to talk a bit about how this room works, what all these squiggly lines are, the story behind how all this came to be because it's kinda crazy, and of course, we get to see just what Far Cry is like in VR, playing alongside people quite physically, and of course try out some other shenanigans. How about we start with what exactly is zero latency?
Yeah, so I'm Phil Martin. I work with Zero Latency here in North America, and I cover a bit of the Asia Pacific as well. And really what we're looking to do is to evangelize for free roam virtual reality as a business, because this is such an amazing social shared immersive experience. We blow minds in VR every day all around the globe. We get 50 sites now. We've had over 1 million, I think 1.1 unique players already. When they put on that headset, they get down and the first wave of zombies attack, or you met Buzz.
You!
In VR, that kind of stuff, where people just go, wow.
Wow.
Butterfly.
Huh. Oh my lord, this is so sick.
So, free roam or location-based VR like this. Gotta be honest, as an at-home PC VR or VR enthusiast in general, I kind of more than understand the response of, well, I have VR at home. I mean, that's kind of my first thought regarding a lot of location-based VR like this, and I shot straight and asked them directly that. What does this form of VR really offer that I can't get at home? Why is Far Cry VR location-based only? And if I have one of these, why would I ever go to a place just to do this?
Hey, solid time. Solid time.
The way we look at it, right, is there is nothing in VR that we aren't supportive of as long as it's good VR. Because everybody knows somebody's had a bad VR experience, they felt nauseous or something like that. We love good VR. Oculus Quest 2 does a great job. I mean, everyone always Beat Saber and all these games, they're just super fun to play. So that's tremendous. But it's a bit like this analogy. Lots of people have a hoop at home where they might go and play one-on-one with their sibling or their buddy or something like that. Now, that's great fun. Everybody enjoys doing it. But if you can get 10 of your buddies together and go down to a court and run around together playing a game, it's the real experience versus the fun of having it at home. And that's what we capture. You are involved in a physically dynamic, social shared environment where you're back to back shooting zombies together, and you can feel the person back to back with you, and you take off your headset and your buddies are there sweating with you. That's just a different level of immersive participation. Now, it doesn't mean that there is anything negative about enjoying VR. I mean, it's brilliant fun. There's so much to do, and you guys know it more than most. But I think what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, you love all that, so come down, get all your buddies together, and when you lean over and you poke somebody, that actually is your person. That's not your cushion or something like that, and that's just fun.
Must be this tall to play Extreme VR. Yo, Toast, get over here. Oh, too bad. You gotta go back home, man.
But yeah, this is just under 2,000. These are non-repeating geometric patterns that are designed to assist in the digital tracking that the headsets do to make sure that you correlate your physical presence with your virtual presence. Simultaneous localization and mapping technology, that tracking system, is using cameras inside the headset to visually locate where it is inside the space. That is then mapped obviously into the game so that whenever it spots one of the visual anchors on the floor, because they're fixed, it knows where you are and it can actually pass those parameters on to where you are in the virtual game space.
And in case you're wondering about Far Cry itself and why it's only available here, well, now we finally get to talk about Far Cry itself. The biggest reason I found Far Cry VR isn't coming to your home is the game is just built from the ground up to be walked around in. You kind of need a giant play space to make this work the way and give the effect the developers intended. Now look, I get it entirely. They could totally strap on some thumbstick controls and ship this as a Steam VR game, but they're not, and I'm gonna be real here. This is a game meant to be played for 30 minutes, the time of one session. This is not the scale of Far Cry 3, or a game you'd expect to release on Steam or the Quest store. It's missing some of the complete open world full game aspects, and in some places, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty much just the prettiest, most immersive wave shooter I've ever played. But in other areas where this giant play space is actually taken advantage of, it's really an experience like I've never had before. You won't be climbing towers or clearing camps like you know in Far Cry. Instead, you play with 6 players, start in a cage where Vaz is screaming at you, which is pretty terrifying, and you move through a relatively linear segment of the game as each team of 3 is in cable cars clearing enemies as you go through increasing difficulties. The real beauty of the game, and honestly its biggest strength, comes in the next segment as you physically walk through caves and over bridges where hallucinogenic mushroom spores fill your lungs and distort reality, or virtual reality even further. And here's where things get pretty trippy. Sharks, moving shadows, and floating inverted platforms where enemies appear. You kind of have no idea what's going to happen next, and I don't want to spill all of it in case you want to go for yourself, but just know firsthand, physically walking through these caves and experiencing this weird trip with my friends in person was some of the most unexpected fun I've ever had in VR. All in all, the experience itself was not typical Far Cry. I mean, there's kind of no way you can directly translate the exact Far Cry formula into a 30-minute experience. Instead, one of the most iconic segments of Far Cry 3 and essentially one base clear is what you get to do. And it's probably the best way you can get the feeling of Far Cry down without making a full-on port of the game. And there's a lot more to it. In case you actually want to go to the location, there's much more that I left out than I gave details on, including a really sick end sequence that makes you question whether anything's real or not. And that leads us onto the question. In a world where we've pretty much been locked down for the better part of the past year and a half, if you have a VR headset right now, I can totally get why you'd immediately dismiss free roam or location VR like this. Why is this even a thing? And I think there's a legitimate place for both of these types of VR to survive. And I want to kind of share my personal vision for the future of these sorts of locations, because while this is cool, I think the next few years for places like this hold a lot more potential than you'd think. I like to think of location-based VR and at-home VR as two differing philosophies that have totally different feels and connotations. While I personally spend probably too much time in my house with a VR headset on, I'm always in VR with other people from across the country or even globe. It's a beautiful thing and brings together people from all over the world and all walks of life in one virtual place. It's human connectivity and social presence on a level like we've never had before. Location-based VR is more like the next step in evolution of the old laser tag locations that I personally grew up with. Except you're not limited to the constraints of neon lighting and carpet walls. Possibilities are literally quite endless. Within a giant room and a bunch of backpack PC VR headsets, you can go from slaughtering zombies with your friends back to back physically to playing a competitive shooter where you're all actually sprinting around the game to win at an objective. I think one of my favorite moments of this trip was when LSToast and I were walking across a small bridge with a massive drop-off, and I physically walked over to Toast and gave him a little shove. Of course, he freaked out as there's a giant drop-off, and that's just something on both sides of the experience that you can't really have anywhere else right now. As for the future of these locations, I've got a grander image and I think you can appreciate it. Location-based VR and at-home VR can exist together, and maybe in the future we'll have a situation where they do exist together for the betterment of both. In a world where massively more people have VR headsets and hardware manufacturers work with locations like this, instead of paying money to rent a headset and backpack that you aren't familiar with as a VR user, you meet with all of your buddies, bring your headsets, and rent the play space itself to play VR like you simply can't experience at home. It's a new form of virtual sports and VR physical presence that could be immediately and extremely accessible to everyone. Because in the future, the world might just be ran by VR, and physical presence will likely be something that we crave, but we still want that sick VR experience. So grab your buddies, rent out a 2,000 square foot tracking warehouse, and play a hypothetical Counter-Strike VR or Echo Arena in person where you can sprint and dive and roll like most people just can't do at home. You can't expect everyone to have a giant play space. I've always been pretty skeptical of location-based VR. Usually the hardware is pretty dated compared to what we have at home, it's expensive, and you have to actually travel to the location and put the headset on, and you're around a bunch of people. Especially during these lockdown months, this whole business seems like maybe old guard VR, and we've evolved past it. But seeing Zero Latency's location trying out some of their best experiences with a 2080 powered backpack PC has led me to a separate conclusion. It is VR. It's good VR, just not the VR that you have at home. And maybe one day, it'll be the kind of VR that gets you out of the home and ushers in a totally different kind of experience. Once again, I want to say thanks to Zero Latency for the interviews, and Ubisoft and Val Esports, a sick VR esports company, for getting LSToast and I all the way out to Reno to make this video. They gave us full creative control, and I wanted to jump on the opportunity to sort of explain this thing. I know it can be disappointing to see a cool franchise you love get a game for a medium you love and you can't play it. So hopefully you took away some information on how this thing works, what kind of experience it is, and maybe we can see location-based VR in a little different light, because I know after this, I definitely do. I want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Benji, Biz, CPCJ79, Debonair Fab, Destroyer Biscuit, Dysfunctional Potato, Fur Trap, Fusion Oak, HCG Randon, It's Lumi, Jonathan, KR, Lucid VR, Mud King, Pixel Thomas, Ribbo, Ronzarelli, That Brock Guy, Token Engineer, Very Evil Shadow, VR Champ, and Zale. I couldn't do any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.
How tall am I, Toast? 5'4"? 5'4"? What the? What? No, I'm at least 5'12". Oh, check this out. Remember this thing? Oh, wait. I know I do.